At exactly 9:30, Marisol's fork tapped her wineglass, commanding the room's attention with the flair of a self-proclaimed reina. "A toast," she declared, her voice syrupy with false warmth, "to my dear father-in-law, Esteban, who just shared he's out of work again due to his health." Her manicured nails gleamed in the candlelight as she made exaggerated air quotes. "How's it feel to be such a failure at your age?" The dining room froze. My son Javier's co-workers and their spouses stared at their plates, avoiding the sting of her words aimed at a 72-year-old man who'd lost his wife 2 years prior. If you're seeing this, drop a comment with where you're watching from. I placed my wineglass down with precision, my hand steady as a sculptor's. "Well, Marisol," I said, my tone smooth as fresh horchata, "it probably feels similar to learning you're getting evicted from the house you've lived in rent-free for 4 years. I paused, letting the words settle like dust. "Because as of tomorrow, you and Javier have 30 days to find your own place." Marisol's smug grin vanished, her face paling faster than a ghost story. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about this house," I said. "The one you've been flaunting on your little social media posts, redecorating like it's yours. It belongs to me, not Javier." I mirrored her earlier smile, sharp and sweet. "Property records are public, you know." Javier's fork hit the plate with a clang. "Dad, what?" "Oh, mijo," I said. "Didn't your wife mention you couldn't get that mortgage because of your credit card debt? I bought this house, cash. Your names aren't on the deed. Never have been." I stood, smoothing my charcoal suit. "Marisol, you've been especially cruel tonight. So let me be clear. You have 30 days to pack up and find somewhere you can afford on your part-time influencer gigs." Marisol's jaw worked soundlessly, like a carp out of water. Around the table, Javier's colleagues hid smirks behind their dessert forks. Nobody cared much for Marisol. She had a knack for pushing people away. "You can't just kick us out," she stammered. "Actually, I can. It's called being a landlord, querida. Look it up." I gathered my jacket and scarf. "Thank you for a delightful evening, everyone. Javier will talk tomorrow. Marisol, I'd start browsing rentals. The market's tough this season." With that, I left my own dining room, leaving behind a woman who'd just learned karma, like a good tequila. Hits hardest when perfectly timed. The next morning, I sipped coffee in my solarium, flipping through the paper, waiting for the inevitable call. It came at 7:15, right on cue. "Dad, what happened last night?" Javier's voice was raw, frayed. I could imagine him pacing my kitchen, tugging his hair like he did as a kid in trouble. "Language, Javier," I said, calm as ever. "You know what happened. Your wife decided to humiliate me in front of strangers, so I reminded her where she stands. You can't kick us out of our home." "It's not your home, mijo, never was." I set my coffee down deliberately. "Remember 4 years ago, when you and Marisol were eyeing that bungalow on Cedar Lane? The bank turned you down because of your credit card debt." Silence on the line. "I offered to help," I continued, "but I didn't co-sign a loan. I bought the house outright. $380,000 from your mother's life insurance. What you've been paying me monthly? That's rent, not a mortgage. The house is mine, Javier. Always has been. Why didn't you tell us?" His voice held confusion, not anger. My son wasn't cruel like his wife, just spineless. Spineless could be forgiven. Cruelty couldn't. "I wanted you to feel independent," I said. "Proud. Your mother and I always said we'd support you without making you feel small. But pride is earned, Javier, not handed out." "Marisol says you're being spiteful." "Marisol says a lot of things. Most are worth about as much as her Instagram filters." I let the edge in my voice cut just a bit. She's your wife, yes, but I'm your father. This isn't about sides. It's about respect. Your wife called your 72-year-old father a failure in front of a crowd. The line went quiet. When Javier spoke, his voice was small. What do you want us to do? Find your own place? Get your own mortgage? Build a life without leaning on me while spitting in my face? I softened slightly. Javier, I love you. Always will. But I won't be a punching bag in my own house for a woman who's never held a real job. At 2:00 that afternoon, Marisol appeared at my door, dressed in flashy athleisure, clutching a cheap bouquet of carnations. The apology act, I'd seen it before. Esteban, we need to talk. She breezed past me into the foyer, uninvited, her confidence that of someone who'd never faced real repercussions. By all means, make yourself at home, I said, shutting the door. She placed the flowers on the entry table, turning with a rehearsed mix of regret and defiance. I want to apologize for last night. I crossed a line. You did? I've been stressed, she said, letting the excuse linger like stale perfume. My influencer business isn't taking off, and with the holidays... Your influencer business, I cut in, raising an eyebrow. The one that's been launching for 3 years with no real followers? Her composure flickered. It takes time to grow an audience. I'm sure. Tell me, how much have you and Javier sunk into this venture? Rough estimate. She shifted, her sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. Maybe $12,000 for gear, ads, branding. I nodded thoughtfully. 15 grand on a business with 0 revenue, all while lounging rent-free in a house worth nearly $600,000. I brushed past Marisol toward the kitchen, making her trail behind like a scolded child. Marisol, do you know what I did before I retired? You were an accountant or something, she muttered. Certified fraud examiner for the IRS, 35 years, I said, filling the kettle with slow, deliberate motions. I track down tax cheats and hidden income for a living. So when you claim your influencer gig has no paying followers, I find that interesting, especially since your social media shows you hosting exclusive content sessions for some very wealthy clients in gated communities. Marisol's face went ashen. Those are just friends helping me out. Friends who pay you cash, off the books, unreported. I turned, leaning against the counter. How much cash, Marisol? Ballpark. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. I think you're running a tidy little side hustle coaching rich folks who pay top dollar for private sessions. You're making good money. You're just not reporting it. Her hands trembled. You can't prove anything. Can't I? Your phone has GPS. Your car has GPS. I've got 35 years of sniffing out tax dodgers, and you're about as subtle as a teenager with a vlog. I smiled, calm as a sunny afternoon. Plus, your clients tag you in their posts, Marisol. They rave about their private coach. By name. She collapsed into a kitchen chair, her bravado gone. What do you want? I want you to realize I'm not some feeble old man you can bully. I'm not your punching bag or your ATM. I poured hot water over tea leaves, the soft clink of the kettle at odds with my iron tone. If you ever talk to me like you did last night, I won't just evict you. I'll report your hidden income to the IRS with receipts. You wouldn't. Try me. That evening, Javier showed up alone, looking like he'd aged a decade in a day. He sank into the armchair his mother used to love, his face heavy with exhaustion. Marisol told me about your talk today. Did she mention her cash side gig? I asked, settling into my own chair. She said you're threatening to report her over a few content sessions. A few sessions at $100 a pop is tax evasion, Javier, not a hobby. I kept my voice soft. No need to rub salt in the wound. She's been doing 8 to 10 private gigs a week for a year. That's around $40,000, unreported. His head jerked up. 100 an hour? She told me she was barely breaking even. Her declared business is tanking. The one she's actually running? Thriving. I sipped my tea, giving him space to digest. Javier, when did you last see Marisol's bank account? We keep separate accounts. She said it's better for her business credit. Separate accounts, I repeated, the picture becoming clearer and uglier. Mijo, sit down. We need to talk. For the next hour, I laid out the truth of his marriage, the hidden cash, the tax evasion, how he'd been scraping by on his mechanic's salary while Marisol stashed money in accounts he didn't know existed. I feel like a fool, he said, voice breaking. You're not a fool, you're trusting. There's a difference. I chose my words carefully. But this isn't just about money. It's about dishonesty. Your wife's been lying to you for over a year. What do I do? That's your call, mijo. You're a grown man. I stood, signaling the end. But you've got 26 days to find a new place. That doesn't change. And if Marisol and I work it out? I looked at him, still clinging to hope for a happy ending. Then you fix it in your own house with your own mortgage, using all your money and hers, reported to the IRS. I patted his shoulder like I did when he was a boy. 26 days, Javier. I'm serious. 3 days later, Marisol made her second mistake. She brought backup. I was in my garden, pruning late-blooming agaves, when a sleek SUV rolled into my driveway. Marisol stepped out, followed by an older woman in a tailored blazer, striding with the confidence of someone who always got her way. Esteban, this is my mother, Valeria Montes, Marisol said, as if presenting a dignitary. Valeria was Marisol's blueprint. Polished, designer-clad, exuding the kind of arrogance that comes from never hearing no. She eyed my modest hacienda-style home like it was a curiosity. Senor Rivera, there's been a misunderstanding, she said, her voice crisp with authority. Marisol explained everything, and frankly, you're being unreasonable. I set down my pruning shears and peeled off my gloves, taking my time. And what misunderstanding is that, Senora Montes? This eviction nonsense. Marisol and Javier have lived here for 4 years. They have rights. They have tenant rights, and I'm choosing not to renew their lease. Valeria's smile was sharp as a cactus spine. Actually, they're family who've contributed to this household for years. Marisol's been maintaining this property, upgrading it, pouring her time and energy into making it a home. So that was their play, claiming ownership through sweat equity. Interesting, I said. Tell me, Senora Montes, what exactly has Marisol contributed? She's been managing expenses, organizing repairs, overseeing upgrades. With whose money? The question hung like desert heat. Valeria's confident smirk wavered just a fraction. Every upgrade, every repair, every gardener's visit, paid for with my money, Senora Montes. I walked past Marisol toward the kitchen, forcing her to follow. Marisol hasn't put a single peso into this house in 4 years. She's been playing house with my wallet. Valeria's polished facade began to crack. She'd come expecting to bully a grieving widower, not face someone who'd spent decades outsmarting sharper crooks than her daughter. Furthermore, I said, my voice light as a summer breeze, I'm curious about Marisol's business records. Does she report all her income to you when you handle her taxes? I assume you do, given your involvement, including the cash from her private coaching sessions? Marisol blanched. Valeria frowned, confused. What cash payments? I smiled, all warmth and venom. Ask your daughter about her thriving off-the-books business. The IRS would love a peek, I'm sure. Valeria turned to Marisol, who looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. What is he talking about? It's nothing, Mama. Just a few sessions. A few sessions that pull in about $3,000 a month. Unreported, I clarified, ever helpful. An honest mistake, I'm sure. The silence was exquisite. Mother and daughter, tangled in their own lies and tax evasion. Valeria, who'd marched in to intimidate me, now faced the possibility that her daughter was a tax cheat. This conversation is done, Valeria snapped. Agreed, I said. 23 days, Marisol. Don't forget. The bombshell landed on a Tuesday afternoon, tucked into a misdirected text. I was sipping coffee with my neighbor Rosa when my phone pinged. Marisol's name flashed, but the message wasn't for me. Can't wait for tonight. Javier's working late again and the old man's out by 9. House is ours. Wear that aftershave I like, Nico. Rosa peeked over my shoulder, her eyebrows shooting up. Well, that's something, she said dryly. Something was one word for it. I had others, less polite. I screenshotted the text and replied, I think this was meant for someone else, Marisol. Be more careful with your phone. Her response came in seconds. Oh God, Esteban, I can explain. I'm sure. Come home now. 20 minutes later, Marisol burst through the door, face flushed with panic. Esteban, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're cheating on my son. I set my phone on the table, the screenshot glaring. Does Javier know? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're sneaking around with another man in my house while Javier works overtime to fund your fake influencer career. I stood, my 5 feet 7 inches frame radiating fury. How long? It doesn't matter. How long, Marisol? 10 months, she whispered. 10 months. While Javier burned himself out at the garage to cover her business losses, while he defended her to me over and over. Who is he? You don't know him. Try me. Her face crumpled. Nico Vargas. He runs a landscaping business. The name didn't ring a bell, but I stored it for later. Cheaters always had baggage. Does his wife know? Marisol's silence spoke volumes. So you're not just wrecking Javier's marriage. You're torching someone else's too. I picked up my phone, fingers poised. What's his wife's name? Esteban, please. Her name? Luz Vargas. But you can't. Can't what? Can't tell her husband's sneaking around with a married woman in my house? Can't let her know her marriage is a sham? I stared at Marisol, disgust heavy in my voice. You have no right to ask me for anything. If you tell Luz, it'll destroy 2 families. You already did that. I'm just balancing the scales. I paused, weighing my next move. But I'll give you a choice. Tell Javier about the affair tonight. End this farce with some shred of dignity. Or I tell him, your mother, and Luz Vargas. Your call. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing for once. I opened the front door. You have until tomorrow morning. Either way, Javier learns the truth. From you or me. Marisol stood frozen, clutching her phone like a shield. Oh, and Marisol, pack your bags tonight. Affair or not, you're out in 20 days. This just makes it cleaner. After she left, I sank into my wife's old rocking chair, the weight of it all hitting me. My son, my loyal, trusting Javier, was married to a woman who dodged taxes, hid cash, and cheated on him in the home I'd bought to give them a leg up. Some people didn't deserve second chances. Some got exactly what they'd earned. Javier's pickup rolled into the driveway at 11 that night, earlier than usual. From my bedroom window, I saw him sit in the cab, head bowed, before trudging to the door, steps heavy with dread. I'd been bracing for this since Marisol left. The only question was whether she'd confessed or spun some lie. A soft knock on my bedroom door confirmed it. "Papa, you awake?" "Come in, mijo." Javier looked like he'd aged a decade in hours. His mechanic's coveralls were stained, his hair a mess, his eyes hollow with shock. "She told me about Nico," he said, slumping into the chair by my bed. "I'm sorry you had to hear it from her." "Are you? Marisol thinks you've been plotting to split us up from the start." I studied his face in the dim light. "Do you believe that?" "I don't know what to believe." He scrubbed his face with calloused hands. 10 months, Papa. She's been lying about the money, the business, everything." "I know." "How'd you know about the affair?" I showed him the screenshot. He read it, jaw tightening. "She was bringing him here, to your house, while I was working late to save for our future." "Yes." He stared at the screen, voice barely a whisper. What kind of man doesn't notice his wife's been lying for 10 months? A trusting one. A good man who thought his wife was good, too. I squeezed his hand. "Javier, this isn't your fault. None of it." "She says she wants to work it out, go to therapy, start over somewhere else," Javier said, his voice heavy with defeat. "And what do you want?" I asked, watching him closely. "I want the last 4 years back. I want to stop feeling like the dumbest man alive." His eyes, so like the boy who'd hide under my arm during monsoon storms, met mine. "I want to know how I married someone I don't even recognize." "People show you who they want you to see, mijo. Marisol crafted a version she thought you'd love. Now you have to decide if you can love who she really is. Could you, if it was Mama?" The question cut deep. "No," I admitted, "but that's me. This is your life, Javier. You choose." He nodded slowly. 18 days left. 18 days, I confirmed. "Good. This house won't feel the same to you anymore." 3 days later, Valeria Montes returned, this time with backup. From my kitchen window, I saw her climb out of her SUV, trailed by a man in a tailored suit, gripping a leather briefcase. Lawyer, I thought, unsurprised. I'd expected this move. The doorbell chimed at 10 o'clock sharp. Valeria stood on my porch, flanked by her ally, both wearing the stern looks of warriors prepping for a fight. "Señor Rivera, this is Diego Montes, my ex-husband and Marisol's father," she said. "He's an attorney." Diego was Valeria's mirror, slick, expensive, oozing the confidence of someone who rarely lost. He scanned my home like a tactician eyeing a battlefield. "Señor Rivera, we need to discuss this situation rationally." "I'm plenty rational, Señor Montes. Your daughter's been dodging taxes and cheating on my son in my house. Asking her to leave is as rational as it gets." His smile was razor sharp. "Adultery isn't grounds for eviction in this state." "And the tax issues?" "That's between Marisol and the IRS, true," I said, pouring myself coffee with deliberate calm. "But being my tenant is grounds for eviction, and I'm not renewing her lease." "There is no lease," Diego countered. "Your son and daughter-in-law have lived here as family, not tenants. They have rights beyond simple landlord-tenant laws." I sipped my coffee, unfazed. 35 years at the IRS had me sparring with sharper lawyers than him. Rights like adverse possession, sweat equity, implied ownership from contributions? I nodded as he pulled documents from his briefcase. Marisol's invested significant time and money into improving this property, giving her a claim to partial ownership. A clever bluff. one that might scare someone who didn't know better. "Interesting," I said, voice mild. "How much has Marisol invested in improvements? Thousands? From her influencer hustle that's all smoke and mirrors? Or from the cash she's hiding from the IRS?" Valeria and Diego exchanged a glance, realizing Marisol hadn't been fully honest. "Furthermore," I continued, "adverse possession requires open hostile occupation. Marisol's been here with my permission, paying rent, acknowledging my ownership for 4 years. She has no claim." Diego's smirk faltered. The rent was informal. No documentation. "Actually, there is." I retrieved a folder from my desk, thick with bank records. 4 years of checks to Esteban Rivera, rent in the memo line. 16 checks a year, 48 total. All deposited. The silence was heavy. "Your daughter's been my tenant, Señor Montes." "Nothing more. And now she's being evicted for cause." I handed him a formal eviction notice I'd drafted that morning. 15 days left. The next morning, Rosa Garcia knocked on my door, her face grim. "Esteban, I've got something about Marisol." I invited her in for coffee, sensing trouble. "What is it?" "My cousin Carla works at the county clerk's office. I had her dig into some records." Rosa sat at my kitchen table, clutching her mug. "Marisol's not just cheating on Javier. She's married to someone else." The words hit like a sledgehammer. "What?" "She married Nico Vargas 6 months ago in Reno. There's a marriage certificate." My mind reeled. "But she's married to Javier." "Exactly. Bigamy." Marisol wasn't just unfaithful. She was committing a felony in my house. "Does Javier know?" "I thought you should tell him." "But there's more." Rosa's voice dropped. "Carla checked Nico Vargas's property records. He's been transferring assets to Marisol, money, investments, even part of his landscaping business." The truth crystallized, uglier than I'd imagined. Marisol wasn't just having an affair. She'd engineered a scheme to siphon wealth from 2 men, Javier, who supported her with his mechanic's wages and my house, and Nico, who was signing over assets. "She's been planning this," I said, the pieces snapping together. The separate accounts, the hidden cash, living here rent-free. She's building a fortune with Javier's money and Nico's assets. "There's more," Rosa said, pulling out documents Carla had sent. "Nico's worth about $2.5 million, and he's been very generous with his new wife. Property transfers, account changes, business stakes, all to Marisol Montes Vargas, dated within the last 6 months. What about Nico's first wife?" "Luz divorced him 5 months ago. He left her for Marisol, moved assets during the divorce, and married Marisol right after it was finalized." Rosa shook her head. "Esteban, this woman's a pro. She didn't just ruin one family, she planned it all." I stared at the documents strewn across my kitchen table. Marisol wasn't just a cheating wife or a tax evader. She was a criminal mastermind. Bigamy, fraud, dismantling multiple families for profit. 12 days left, I said quietly. "Are you telling Javier?" Rosa asked. "I'm telling everyone who needs to know." The investigation that unraveled Marisol's world had started 3 weeks earlier, sparked by someone I'd never met. Detective Carla Torres from the county sheriff's office called me Thursday afternoon, but not for what I expected. "Señor Rivera, we believe you have information on Marisol Montes's activities. We're investigating financial fraud and bigamy charges filed by Luz Vargas." Luz Vargas had been building a case against her ex-husband and Marisol for months. When Nico abruptly divorced her and transferred assets, she'd hired a private investigator who uncovered the bigamy almost immediately. "The bigamy charge is airtight," Detective Torres said during our meeting in my living room. "Marisol married your son in 2020 and Nico Vargas in Reno 6 months ago without divorcing Javier. But we're also looking at mail fraud, wire fraud, and tax evasion." I handed over everything. the marriage certificate Rosa found, evidence of hidden income, property transfers, Marisol's lies laid out in a timeline. Torres nodded, adding my files to her already thick case. Senor Rivera, we've been tracking Marisol for 2 weeks. She's running a marriage fraud scheme. Your family wasn't her first mark. The words hit like a punch. What do you mean? We found evidence she vetted multiple families over the past 18 months, targeting wealthy widowers with unmarried kids. Your family matched her profile. Marisol's scheme was chilling in its precision. She hadn't stumbled into crime. She'd been targeting families like mine for over a year before meeting Javier. We're making arrests tomorrow, Torres said. Marisol and Nico face federal charges. The evidence is overwhelming. That evening, I told Javier everything. The investigation, Marisol's targeting of our family, how their entire relationship was a calculated con. He sat silent as I explained how she'd researched us, orchestrated their meeting, and manipulated him to access my wealth. When I finished, he stared at the floor, processing. So none of it was real, he said finally. Not one moment of our 4 years. I'm sorry, mijo. Don't be. It makes it easier. He looked up, a flicker of relief in his eyes. I've been beating myself up, wondering what I did wrong. Now I know I was just her mark. 3 hours later, I watched from my window as police cars surrounded my house. Marisol's face was a masterpiece of shock, disbelief, and finally, cold fury as they cuffed her. Javier pulled into the driveway as they loaded her into the cruiser. He stood there, watching his wife vanish into custody, his expression unreadable. 9 days left, he said, stepping inside. Take all the time you need. The house will be here when you're ready to move forward. The final truth came at Marisol's sentencing, delivered by federal prosecutor Sofia Reyes in a courtroom packed with her victims. Your Honor, the defendant ran a sophisticated marriage fraud scheme for over 2 years, targeting widowers and their adult children across 3 states. The Rivera family was victim number 7. 7 families. Marisol had shattered 7 before ours. Javier and I sat in the gallery as Reyes detailed her crimes: financial fraud, bigamy, tax evasion, identity theft. The list stretched over 20 minutes. The defendant researched wealthy families' exploited vulnerabilities and infiltrated them through romantic relationships. She established financial dependency, gained access to resources, then committed bigamy with richer targets while milking her original marriages. The courtroom was hushed as Reyes revealed Marisol had stolen over $2.8 million across 3 states, marrying 4 men simultaneously at one point, leaving a trail of broken lives. The Rivera family was fortunate, she continued. Senor Esteban Rivera's fraud investigation background helped him spot the scheme before it was completed. Other families weren't so lucky. Marisol sat at the defendant's table, her designer athleisure swapped for an orange jumpsuit, a shadow of the woman who'd called me a failure in my own home. When the judge sentenced her to 9 years in federal prison, she didn't blink. Nico Vargas got 5 for his role in the asset transfers. Luz Vargas, in the courtroom, had recovered most of her stolen assets through the investigation. Afterward, Luz approached Javier and me in the hallway. Thank you both, she said. Your evidence helped convict them, but more importantly, it showed me this wasn't personal. It was just business to Marisol. How are you holding up? I asked. Better. Rebuilding, like your son. Sometimes when someone shows you their true colors, you believe them the first time. 3 months later, Javier moved into his own place across town. The house felt quieter, but it was a calm silence, the kind that follows a storm. If you're watching this, remember, sometimes the people who hurt us most teach us the hardest lessons. Marisol showed me that kindness without limits is just vulnerability. And protecting those you love sometimes means being merciless with those who'd harm them. As for me, I'm right where I belong, in my own house, living my own life, answering to no one but myself. That, I've learned, is worth more than any fortune.